let's just look at the highlights. Let's start positive, shall we? So it was a really, really positive experience during the review in your school. Everybody just threw themselves into it and gave it a go. But not only that, the outcomes from the review were a real learning opportunity for both myself and James. So that's one of the reciprocal things about doing these reviews, is you as the reviewer always learn things too. And we try to pick out some highlights. So when we do the feedback to Heidi and yourselves, we just try and say, look, in doing this review and looking at an area of your practice, these were the things that we just thought were great. So here they are. So communication, alignment to values, responsiveness to feedback, the relationships that you and your community had created, particularly during lockdown, the sort of can-do attitude. You're a very risk-taking, can-do bunch of people, which is great, and the sense of community that sort of came out. James and I thought there were sort of 3 areas where you could explore further. And today we're going to do the bottom one highlighted in the red text. But I just thought it was important that you saw the sort of our thinking, and Heidi, I think, agreed with all 3 of these things, and they're all really interrelated. So what we've done is set this as a goal for the workshop. What were the most successful elements of remote and online home learning that can be successfully adopted and adapted into consistent and common practice across the school? And this is the key bit, without increasing workload for teachers, okay? Because we recognise you're back in the sort of saddle, you're going to hopefully be working face-to-face with the majority of your children. And then we know that you're looking at Rosenshine's Principles of Instruction from autumn onwards, so we thought we might try and link that in as well. So on the next Jamboard, what I'd like you to do is think about all the strategies and approaches that during the time you were rapidly developing all this home learning and remote learning and online learning, what was it you actually did? Okay, so we're just trying to capture at the moment all the strategies and approaches you tried. So I've given you some examples on that PowerPoint there, because I know you did these things. So I know some of you were very brave and recorded some short teaching clips to explain key concepts, and you put those on YouTube. And I know, because I spoke to your parent support advisor, that you really tried to make sure all families had access to technology, okay? So at the moment, I just think about what you and your team, if you're sitting and you're working in a little team in the room there, that's fine. You can talk to each other. What was it that you actually did during lockdown to try and help with that sort of remote and online learning stuff? Right, so good and consistent communication with the class. Dan's already put one on there. Stayed in contact with parents via Dojo. Okay, so we've got some things appearing. I'm just going to move them so we can all see what's appearing, okay? So just keep going. You are allowed to talk to each other as well. It's not a test. So I don't mind hearing you all chatting to each other. That's absolutely fine. Great. As my sort of in the room facilitator, do you think you could work with your colleagues there now and think, do any of these post-its seem to group together in a particular way? I'll give you an example. So there's definitely a theme here around, there was some rapid training to get everybody confident to use some various different technologies. So whether that was videoing or Padlet or Zoom or Google Classroom or Dojo, you know, there was definitely a sort of a training element. So there's a sort of group of stuff there. The other thing I'm seeing in this group, just one more category, then I'll let you have a thing, was something around communication with parents, not just setting the actual work for the children, but the way in which you communicated with parents using remote technologies. So that might be 2 different categories. So, but you might disagree. You might think there are other different categories. So as a group in the room, and I'll just watch you doing it on the Jamboard, do you think you could now begin to think about how do these post-its group? So what we're trying to establish now then is you're not having to provide, you know, huge amounts of online learning at home because most of the children are going to be in school. However, you don't want to lose everything you learned from this experience. And there could be some really, really good things that you did that you think, actually, we should carry on doing that, or a version of it. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and establish now. What would the priorities be out of all of these things that we should adopt and adapt as we work forward into 2021? So I thought before we go into the prioritization exercise, which is what you're going to do next, you're going to take the things you have been doing and prioritize which ones you think you would like to continue to do and how you would like to do that. I thought it might be worth just having a little dip into the evidence. Okay, so what does the evidence about home learning tell us? And it's quite interesting, really. I mean, there's a number of things we need to think about here. There's homework as it always was, and that is where the vast majority of the research has been done. So vast majority of the research that EAF, the Education Endowment Foundation, refer to would have been on homework prior to lockdown. So we're not actually looking at remote and online interactive things necessarily, although some schools may have been doing it. But if you look at what it says about homework on the, do you know the Teaching and Learning Toolkit, which gives you your best bets and what the research evidence say? For primary homework, it's a bit patchy, to be honest. What they have said is where homework is used really, really well, the involvement with the parents is a significant plus. So when you start to look at these principles of instruction, I mean, the immediate ones that jump out are the practice ones, aren't they? But actually, the more you think about it, the more you can use if you're going to use and develop your home learning environment, you can use it for modelling.
Yes.
Which, because you are, as a school, relatively confident and video stars now, you know, using your YouTube channel and everything, which I have to say is quite unusual. You know, you're sort of out there, in a good way. You know, then actually you're beginning to think about how the learning at home is supported with similar approaches to how it's supported in school. Do you see what I mean? Yes. So that's sort of where we're trying to get to. We're just trying to tease out what the best bets would be to do and the most, you know, where you're going to invest your time and energy, basically. So I'm just going to show you the frame. So it looks like this. Have you seen one of these before, folks?
Yeah.
So it's Prioritization Matrix, very, very, very simple. So the furthest over to the right your ideas go, the higher the impact you think they will have. The higher up the chart they go, the easier you think they are to achieve. Okay? So things that end up in this top right-hand green box, these are things that we think will make the biggest difference, and they're relatively easy to do. Okay, things that if you write anything in the red box down here, you're probably not going to do it because it's hard to do and you're not even sure it's going to have the greatest impact. Then obviously things that go in this box, potentially high impact, but might be tricky to achieve. So you might still look at doing some of those. These, easy peasy, but we're not sure about the impact. So you might have to tweak those activities.